All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here. We can start the show. We got the wheels spinning there. Let's see if Facebook's a little bit nicer than it was Monday night, but it's up right now, so we'll assume it's good. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. It is Wednesday morning, 7:44 a.m. Mountain Time. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Erick Trickel. Erick, how you doing? What's good? What's new? Your angle's changed, but I like seeing Yoda behind you there. I see Chewy. I see a Broncos mailbox too. What's good?
Not much. Yeah, I mean, got to stand up for the show today. Fortunately, my office chair broke last night, so can't sit down. Otherwise, I'd constantly be falling backwards. But I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I think we got some pretty good information coming out of the first real day of the combine from all the press conferences from the general managers and head coaches, including the Broncos. And yeah, I'm excited to be here, even though it's not even 6 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's 6:45 for me. I've been up since 5, and actually I've been starting to I hurt my shoulder back in September, and but I had been lifting for 3 months pretty consistently before that, and I'm back on it. And I'm actually my 5 a.m. wake ups for the Falcons show that I do before this one are actually me sleeping in compared to the other days because I'm trying to get the workout in before the little kid. Unfortunately, he didn't go to sleep last night we tried to get him down for 4 hours straight before he finally went down, and I'm dealing with a sore throat as well. So vibes are high, all the same. Excited to talk Broncos. I will say I have a lot of FOMO with the combine going on. I think I mentioned that Monday, but it became even more real seeing what's the account on here? Chad's shiny marble in the press conference or the podium session with Sean Payton. Seeing him live there. Did he ask a question? I didn't catch if he actually asked a question.
I couldn't tell if he did. At one point, it looked like he kind of turned a little bit and looked like his mouth was moving, but couldn't quite tell if he was asking a question or just like stretching out his jaw or something.
Talking to Zach, who's probably next to him or something as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get it going. Let's say hello to people in the chat as we start to go here Wednesday morning. We got our guy Jason Bonney coming in. He says, "Good morning, Broncos country, Denver Broncos for life." We also got our guy Shiloh coming in here saying, "I've always loved the combine days, going back to getting dish for the first time in rural South Dakota in 2005 middle school and throwing on NFL Network for the data. Excited to hear the reports." Yeah, today is the podium sessions for the front 7 players, which, in my opinion, outside the running backs and the tight ends, is by far the best group in Indy this season and in the NFL draft. Just going through the names of the edge rushers. I've been following, Ryan Edwards out there, obviously Chad and Zach as well. And, you have all these edge rushers talking right now. And then now it's been like the linebackers. And like, man, I actually really like the linebacker crop too. Now, outside of Jihad Campbell and whatever you want to think about Jalen Walker, but not a lot of like obvious like top 20, top 30 picks, but like between pick 50 and pick 110, there's going to be probably 3 to 5 starting caliber prospects taken. Now, I say that and then I think, well, actually, the NFL doesn't know bleep about what actually makes a good linebacker given the historical data at linebacker. But a lot of good linebacker prospects in the mid rounds that are being interviewed right now. That makes me excited. I'm not typically a linebacker or a running back guy, but Denver's done so well at the premium positions. And outside of, pick 20 overall, it's fun to get excited about those picks in those areas that it's still a premium investment.
Yeah, I mean, linebacker, I remember in January on the Valley Deep Divers talking about how linebacker is one of the weakest positions in this class. And that was before I really, I did some work on the linebacker class, but before I really dug into it, and as I dug into it, it's still not a great class, but it was a class where it's like, okay, you have your top guy or two, you have like one or two guys in that second, third round area, and then everybody else. I think as I'm starting to compile my pre-combine grades and put them in order, I think I'm currently sitting with 6 linebackers that are, top 30 to 100 picks, not including, Campbell and Walker, whom I have Walker listed at edge for me. And there's been a lot of talk recently about Campbell being edge in the NFL, moving him back to where a lot of people apparently view his more natural position. But still, I mean, having those 6 other linebackers that have really grown on me and kind of emerged, it helps out this class a lot, especially for a team like the Denver Broncos, who need to find somebody for that linebacker room because, if they keep Alex Singleton or not, he's still on the final year of his deal. We don't know what he's going to give. Drew Sanders hasn't stepped up. Justin Strnad is a free agent. Cody Barton's a free agent. So even if they go sign somebody at linebacker, they still could use drafting another one to develop, to start potentially next season in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. And just some of those linebacker names that to me stand out going through this list. I'm using NFLDraftBuzz.com just for the rankings because for some reason they're always the top when I look up positional rankings. But I don't agree with all their spots. But you have Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, Chris Paul, Ole Miss, Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon stands out. Kobe King from Penn State. He had a heck of a playoff run. Really like also down here a little bit further, but Jack Kaiser, Notre Dame stood out, and Cody Lindenberg, also a Senior Bowl guy that I know that you took a liking to in the process there. So, I mean, Denver right now, they have their second, third, and fourth round pick. I think in third and fourth round makes a lot of sense for them to take a linebacker. That said, one of our big takeaways, and we'll get into some more people saying hello in here in the chat as the show continues on, but Drew Sanders news. That's one of the big takeaways from the press conference yesterday. Both George Paton and Sean Payton talking about the Broncos 2023 third round pick I almost said Cody Barton, Drew Sanders. He's been waffling back and forth between drafted to play off ball. They're trying him at edge. Last season, going to go to edge. That was the talk last year at the Combine. Much to my dismay, because not a great athlete for the edge position, not good enough. But now he's back to linebacker. And I'm not saying I'm totally giving up on Drew Sanders. I think there's special teams ability still, run and tackle and some niche, blitz looks as well in different kind of fronts. But as far as becoming a good return on investment for a third round pick, because that's an early third, that's a premium, relatively premium pick at an off ball linebacker. I think that this is a make or break offseason for him. And you talk about, replacing Alex Singleton. Denver will probably bring in somebody in the draft, and it's going to be Sanders versus this draft pick versus the unknown as far as who's going to replace Singleton after this season. Because you said Denver might bring in a linebacker. I would be floored beyond belief if they didn't sign a linebacker this offseason to be a 3 to 4 year option at the position.
Yeah, and with Drew Sanders is you talk about, special teams value, blitz value. I think the only thing that really is, I don't want to say unreplaceable, but harder to replace value is his blitz ability from the linebacker position. I mean, every single year we sit there and we see guys coming into the NFL at the linebacker position that, hey, this guy's a special teamer. This guy's a special teamer. I mean, Lavelle Bailey ended up on the roster last year because of the value that they thought he would bring to special teams, as well as the development that he has. So, and you talk about drafting a guy to compete with Drew Sanders, and the other guy, well, I think the other guy is Lavelle Bailey.
Yeah.
They got a lot of praise for him, and they kept him around on the roster last year. And there's been a lot of praise going around about him throughout the season. So it's at a point where I don't think they go out and cut Drew Sanders right now. But if it comes down to those final cuts and Drew Sanders has clearly not taken a step as a defender, and not just as a blitzer, but overall, I think it's a situation where they do cut him. They move on from him. They look at, Lavelle Bailey. They look at the guy that they draft, and they're like, okay, you two guys are our backup linebackers. And who knows, maybe they also sign another linebackers closer to, in training camp at some point, if they're not overly enthused with how the room is looking, how the depth is looking. And they go and replace Drew Sanders. That wouldn't surprise me one bit, because, as that early third round pick, you're kind of looking for year 2, year 3 to be where they really start to emerge and not necessarily become a starter, but become a key player or a role player for them. And it's just, as you said, it's one of those premium picks where ideally you're getting a starter, but if not, it's not as harmful as not getting started out of your first round pick. But Drew Sanders is at that point. This is a make or break offseason for him, as you said. And if he doesn't step up, he's very well could likely be one of those, cut downs to 53.
Yeah, and for me, again, I haven't sat down and combed through the special teams reps. I know you mentioned Bailey and other guys that have stood out in special teams, but I feel like once Sanders was active, specifically on punt coverage units, he stood out for me in punt coverage. Like I would notice, oh, there's Drew Sanders again. He's right there. So I know that there's like special teams and discipline that matters a lot, but as far as the run and chase and tackle aspect, I feel like Sanders is a little bit higher up, and that's where some of the special teams values come. But playing linebacker again, as we mentioned it, I don't think that based on what I've heard from sources, as well as just my own personal opinion, I would be pretty shocked if Denver was in any way saying like, oh yeah, Drew Sanders, early pick. We're just going to go with him next season, next to Singleton. We're not going to make a move at linebacker. Linebacker is the one I'm absolutely most confident in. They're going to sign somebody in free agency. Yeah. Where like tight end, running back, safety, they're also looking, but I think that's safety also they'll probably sign somebody. But I'm more confident they'll sign a linebacker than a safety. And they're going to have options in the draft at running back and tight end. Even though we talked about good linebackers we like too, I feel like they're more likely to lean towards the draft towards running back and tight end as opposed to linebackers. So again, Sanders, he's more so, can you stay healthy? Can you grow at that linebacker spot? And if so, maybe you're replacing Singleton for a year and we'll go from there in 2026. But by no means is he going to be given a starting spot. We are still very much in the find out phase for him.
And for me, I mean, you mentioned, might sign a running back, might sign a tight end. I have confidence they'll sign one. I have I have confidence that they'll spend big at linebacker. Yeah. Running back, safety, those might be some of those, tier 3, tier 4 contracts, not quite minimum, but right around it, not much more than it. But I think that we're going to see a pretty big spending spree at linebacker, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, pretty good expenditure for sure. Yeah. We got Jason again saying there are 2 20-year-old running backs I've watched film on in recent days that have me excited. Dylan Sampson from Tennessee and LaQuint Allen from Syracuse. Sampson likely a 3rd-round pick. Allen possibly could be 5 or 6. Yeah, I've seen Allen anywhere from one of the first picks, day 3, all the way to round 6. And I've seen Dylan Sampson. I mean, I think Dane Brugler in his last mock had Dylan Sampson going to the Cowboys with their 2nd-round pick. So he's a track star, Dylan Sampson is. And has been a really, really just explosive player. I don't really love his balance and vision sometimes, but he can get downhill and in the open field. And once he can stretch out his legs, he's pretty awesome. And Allen has just been super steady. I mean, the production that he had as a pass catcher, I wouldn't say he's overly explosive or anything, but he's just so smooth. So I really like both those guys. Both are options for the Broncos. I know that Sampson is a good athlete. I don't know if that's translated as a wide receiver. Now, some of that might be the Tennessee offense with Heupel and Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback there at Tennessee, still kind of growing. The Tennessee offense, though, is just abysmal to try to evaluate players. But both are definitely options in a exceedingly deep and talented running back draft class.
Yeah, and it always, when you have a deep class like that, it's hard to really project where they're going to go. I think it was one of the CBS sports mocks that they had Sampson as like the 30th pick, I think. So I've even seen some very late first. I really like Sampson. He has some of those vision issues as you mentioned. And Allen, he's another guy, as you said, he's just consistent. He's not the most explosive guy. He's not, this potential home run hitter consistently, but he's a guy who's going to consistently pick you up positive yardage. Whether that's working as a receiver out of the backfield or working as a runner, he's just very consistent, very reliable. And there's value for that. I mean, is that as a number 2 running back, number 3? That's where we're unsure about with Allen. He's definitely not, I don't think he's a bell cow back type, that number 1 guy. But he can work in a committee as, that 1B, I guess would be the way to put it. But I think in a committee like, what Sean Payton uses, I think he might be better as a number 3. But, there's always that chance that they come in and show something that you just don't see on tape, or, they get that fire lit under them to go out there and outperform their draft stock because they feel slighted by where they went up. But, yeah, there's a lot to like about this running back class, and I think the Broncos, wherever they select one, will probably end up with a pretty good option to contribute.
I mean, it's talented enough, deep enough, and you run through those guys, and Payton likes to use multiple of them that I know Denver only has – there's 7 picks and they don't have like a gluttony of top 120 selections, but one of your top 4 draft picks ideally is a running back, and one of your 3 6-rounders is ideally a running back as well. You have guys here, but they haven't shown enough. None of them have shown enough to keep you from drafting any type of back in this class, other than you're like, I think you and I talked about it Monday night. You're a pure outside rusher who doesn't bring pass protection or pass catching ability. That's like the one of like you're too niche for what we need here in Denver, but not niche. We got Coach Chris saying, good morning, everyone. The sun is shining Heck yeah. No, the sun is shining. I'm sorry, coach. I'm just teasing you. I make mistakes all the time like that. And we're inching closer to the draft. I agree. This is Drew's last chance to remain with the team. Reminds me of Browning. No way he gets snaps at edge. Have a great day, all. I mean, Browning at least had like the physical profile that matched like good edge rushers. Like Drew Sanders, not actually like close to the explosive profile of Browning. I'll never forget him just getting absolutely ragdoll in that game against the Lions. I mean, that was some of the worst edge tape I've seen in Denver in the last 3-4 seasons. Granted, it was against Penny Sewell, some of it, but it was just like, this guy is find the fish, right? Who stinks here? We're going at him. That was Sanders in that game at edge. But I'm hoping that he can end up. I mean, if Sanders ends up like Browning and you're able to trade him on his last contract for a 6th round, he would have had made massive strides on the field. Right now, you're talking about a wave guy that's like, is he even going to be rosterable? Like Browning is going to get paid by somebody this offseason. He's going to get a chance. So that's because of the tools and the trades. So we'll see what happens. But I'm pulling for Sanders. Heck, at this point, even if he can be a 2nd string role player with blitzability and special teams, like that's not what you want for a 3rd round pick at linebacker. But there's at least some value there all the same. So we're eyes on Sanders. He's one of the few players on this team that it's like, yeah, Denver drafted you kind of a premium pick, mid-round, but your role is very much in the air. You mentioned Demetrius Knight Monday morning, or not Demarius, excuse me. I'm getting my player Mathis. You mentioned him being one. He's one who's kind of on off. We'll see. We have Owazarike also. We'll see that kind of that 4th rounder. Troy Franklin's role this season, big offseason for Troy Franklin and Audric Estime as well. All those guys that were like, they're not 6th, 7th rounders, but 3rd round, 4th round, definitely not guarantees spots, roles, or even making the roster right now. But thank you, Coach Chris, coming in here. One of our stars, never an underdog for our morning shows or any of our shows. He's always supporting us, and we always appreciate you, Coach Chris, coming in here.
Yeah, and speaking of underdogs, this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop. Opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, you can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn just $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with the promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus, Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado. For some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncbgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8 or text HOPE-NY. Moving on here, I want to say hello to more folks in the chat. Again, thank you, Coach Chris, for the super chat, keeping the lights on in here. While, Eric and I are still kind of forging our way on this new iteration of Broncos for Breakfast. So everything like that helps. But even just dropping a chat, thumbs up, all of that helps a heck of a lot as well. Or sending coffee and island treats my way. Michael Latsky, one of I'll just say it, my favorite person in Puerto Rico. Michael, good to see you. I always think of there's a guava marshmallow moon pie thing that he sends as a treat. And it is unbelievable. The guava one especially. All of them are good, but that one, man, keep me away. Appreciate you so much. We got Denver Luke saying, what are the odds of Denver getting Gronk? I would say 0.01%. I appreciate Cecil Lammy. Great guy. I'm sure he heard something. I think the connection was Gronk was working out somewhere in Denver and like, maybe you come back to the NFL, maybe connecting dots there, but he's been out of the league for a while. He was injured a lot towards the end. I would be shocked. It's fun to talk about, maybe one of those things over drink, people spitballing, whatever. But I don't think there's any probability there.
Yeah, and it was something that almost immediately started getting shot down by, and not to slight Cecil at all, but by the big guys in the NFL, the guys who cover the NFL as a whole, the Ian Rappaport, the Adam Schefters, those types of guys. A couple of them came out and almost immediately, no, not happening. He's not considering it. One of them is the one who came out and said he was working out in Colorado and that was about it. He likes to stay in shape. Not eyeing a return to football. He enjoys, his analyst gig that he has. But even if he was, I mean, I wouldn't be for it, even if he was. But it's not something that we have to worry about because, it all seems like it's not actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Denver's looking for tight end. Probably not Gronk, but we'll see what happens. We got Chase coming in with the Suns. Great to see you. Roy's in the house. Good morning, Nick and Eric. Had my Lion coffee. Me too. It's too hot though, so I had to take the top off. I don't know if you can see it steaming there. Maybe not, but very tasty. Don't judge me. I do have creamer in there. I do like. I'm from the Midwest. I like some dairy. Arthur Eugene Spooner over on Twitch. Good to see you. AES. What are you guys' thoughts on Harold Landry? I think Harold Landry will end his way in New England. Following Vrabel out there, they need edge rush help. And New England has a lot of picks, a lot of cap space as well. They could eat the contract as much as they possibly can. And Denver's full when it comes to the smaller pass rush specialist edge rushers right now. So he's a good player. Boston College liked him coming out, and just not really room on Denver's team.
Yeah, I mean, he's that high quality pass rusher that is not quite a liability against the run, but not a good run defender by any means. And there's a few teams that make sense. Denver isn't one of them. Obviously, as you said, New England Patriots, and any team needing a pass rusher, like even if it's a specific role for them as just a pass rusher, any team who can do that, who can use that, they can be an option for him because he is a pretty high quality pass rusher.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Jermaine in here. Ayo, Nick. Sup, buddy? Sup to you, Jermaine? Good to see you. Appreciate you coming in. We got Jeremy also says, I honestly think we should get a pretty key piece, let's hope, at 20 and find some nice players day 2 and 3. This is the draft that sets us up for the future. Yeah, you just got to keep stacking good draft classes. I mean, the unfortunate reality, not to be, here comes negative Nick Debbie Downer, but like you can't expect every single year to have a 99th percentile draft, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's eventually you're going to have a down draft. It's just the probabilities of it all. But Denver stacked a few good ones in a row. It'd be awesome if they could get like the 2017 Saints class where they walked away with like 4 all-pros or something, just a crazy good number of players. That could really turn a team around. But, that's one reason that, there's no such thing as a sure thing in the draft. I do like just bringing it back to the podium session with George Paton. He said that he doesn't, easy for him to say for this bit, but he's like, yeah, I think the prospects going between 10 and 20 are going to be essentially the same graded. Of course they are. That means, hey, maybe somebody wants to trade up. It's the same thing as trading up to 10 overall. And also he mentioned that they're hoping to have 4 players that they like when they are on the clock at 20 for options. So, I mean, front 7 player, offensive weapon. We'll see how it falls. I listened to it again, Eric. We talked about it in a chat. It's like, oh, it sounds like 4 specific players. I don't think actually that's what he meant by it. It's just like 4 guys who are worth the grade at that point. And I would assume weapon or defensive tackle or maybe linebacker, but those are the spots or safety. Those are the spots I'm thinking they'll be evaluating there.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't, there was another comment that he made, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of that you always got to add to the defensive line, that you can always use more, and we're going to continue to look there. And I think it was in response to a question about DJ Jones specifically. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you can rule out a defensive lineman at 20, especially if they are looking at it. Of course, it could be just, coach speak, general manager speak, and just like, oh, we're going to keep all of our options open. We're not going to sit there and highlight anybody just in case, the team at 21 who's looking at this defensive lineman wants him. Well, and we have a couple guys there. Maybe they would want to trade up just that one spot to secure their guy. Don't see it happen a whole lot, but do see it happen every now and then, enough to, keep it worthwhile of keeping your options open. But I mean, when you look at the makeup of the room and when you look at how George Paton has done things, you kind of got to expect that they are eyeballing at least 1 or 2 defensive linemen there, depending on if they're available or not, as well as, the running back, Genty, the tight ends, Loveland and Warren, maybe another running back, maybe, since the NFL loves him, Hampton, or maybe a wide receiver. Like there's just a lot of guys there. And another thing too, and you mentioned that, 10 to 20 value. I think that's one thing, if they really believe that hurts them with their desire of wanting to trade up, because if they're similarly graded, will they want to give up that extra value to move up? And that would not change the grade, but it changes, the value of what your investment. And when you have similarly graded, you may not want to increase that value of the investment for it. So yeah, all options are available. And I think they're just looking that they are expecting 4 guys that they like to be there. not necessarily, four specific guys, just four guys in general.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got Adam Strange coming in and says, "What's up, Broncos Maniacs? Great to see you." Shiloh asks, which prospects have to be off the board for the Broncos to heavily consider trading back? I think Loveland, Genty, Tedero, McMillan, and Tyler Warren are probably the four that if they're off the board, I think Denver would probably be considering trading back. After that, I think Arroyo had a chance to play himself in the first round, but now that he's got an injury again, you're not going to get the testing validated numbers. He probably not an option at 20 now. Maybe Omarion Hampton. I mean, heck, Mel Kiper had him going 12 overall, so there has to be some love in the league for him. Henderson's also a possibility at 20. And then you talk about your, Jihad Campbell's, Malachi Starks, Nick Manawari, a number of interior defensive linemen. But I think probably Genty, Loveland, McMillan, and Warren are the four weapons right now. And, I've been banging the defensive line drum. I had so many people tag me yesterday on Twitter after Sean Payton mentioned they're obviously always looking to add to the defensive line because of how important it is. It's nice to have a brand, I guess. Thank you for everybody who tagged me on that. But I think right now it is one of those four offensive weapons, first and foremost. But yeah, those are the guys that stand out for me. I think you probably agree. That's what we talked about yesterday when we messaged. Tim Durr's in the house, says, "Good morning, Nick and Eric. What's good, Broncos country? We're hanging out. We're having a good time. Good to see you. As always, Ernie Mays is in the house. Yeah, good to see you. Go Ernie Mays only. Appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying healthy." Chase comes in and says, "Do you have a Travion Henderson NFL comparison?" Some people have compared him to Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know if he's as electric in like tight spaces as Gibbs is. Like, that's the thing about Gibbs. It's like even in compressed areas, he can squirt through. And I feel like Henderson doesn't always have that ability to just like teleport behind the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden he's gone through the line of scrimmage, where I feel like Henderson's more bending outside the line or outside the blockers. But do you have a comp that you like for Travion Henderson?
No, I'm not a big comp guy. I don't like making comparisons. And one of the big reasons is that when you make that comparison, there's too many people that say is like, "Oh, this is what this player is going to be." And it's all about style. This is the style of player that they are. And so I don't really do comps. It's not my thing. I get why they're used, but when I watch a player, I'm not looking at, oh, is this like this player or this player? It's just me trying to figure out who that player is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got some more comments in here. Somebody asked, where is it? They asked about Hampton not being a fit in the Broncos offense. Some of the comps I've heard for Hampton are Mark Ingram and David Montgomery. I mean, you're looking for two very different types of backs for the Thunder and Lightning for the Broncos. And right now they're looking for both of them. I think that Estime in theory could be that Thunder, but guess what? 5th round pick didn't show. Diddley last year fumbled the ball every time. They obviously don't trust him in pass protection. He's not keeping me from adding somebody to that skill set right now. You can't, right? You can't go into the season with like, oh yeah, he's definitely our primary between the tackles guy. He's gonna have to compete for that role. So definitely a role for that. We got Mark coming in, of course. I don't even know I said hello to Mark, but good morning, Nick and Eric. Good morning, Mark. Mark is one of the great ones, an absolute sweetheart, a good guy. Hope you're doing well, Mark. Hope you're staying healthy. I see our guy Jeremy in here asking about RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey, we were talking Monday, Eric. Daniel Jeremiah mentioned 3 players day 2 the Broncos could look at. One of them was Blue from Texas. One of them was Harold Fannin. I'm like, who's the other running back? It was RJ Harvey. Harvey's very explosive. UCF, you see him on wheel routes. You see him on angle routes. My concern with Harvey, now he's built like a fire hydrant. He's like 5'8", 205 or something. So proportionally, like I'd rather have like, 5'10", 220. That's how I want my backs built. But he's built thick, which is good for his height. I do worry about the catch radius with him a little bit. And also I'm curious to see how his running style and vision translates to the NFL, because you will not find a back who does not want to run between the tackles as much as RJ Harvey. And he can get away with that was it Gus Malzahn out there at UCF, Big 12, allergic to tackling defensive conference. Utah maybe changes the math there a little bit. But I watch RJ Harvey and it's like, okay, you have a hole there. Guess what? I'm so fast. I'm just going to press the line and kick it to the outside. Press the line, kick it to the outside. He gets away with that in the Big 12. That's not happening in the freaking NFL. Now, I'm not saying that he can't run between the tackles in the NFL, but his move to create explosives, I don't think actually translates the best to the NFL right now.
Yeah, there's going to be a common theme with running backs for me this year. Small hands and how the correlation with fumbling issues in the NFL. The issue with RJ Harvey compared to some of the other guys with small hands, he has fumbling issues in college. Ball security was a big concern for him. His fumble rate is not well below, the 1 out of 100 touches, but it's like 1 out of like 70 touches or 60 touches. So still below it. And yeah, I mean, when you have ball security issues with small hands in college, when I was looking through the data and stuff like that, I didn't find a single one who went on to the NFL and didn't have ball security issues, if they even got much of an opportunity at all. So I'm not a fan of him. Ball security for running backs is a big thing for me. And it's like with Audric Esme, the reason why you can't cement him on the roster and why he's got to go out there and compete is because on his first 9 carries, he fumbled twice. So you got to have that, you got to protect the ball, especially in a Sean Payton offense, unless you are super, what's the right word here? Such a high level playmaker where you more than make up for it. Fumbling's gonna kill you in Sean Payton's offense. It's gonna see you on the bench. It's gonna see your usage get limited, and eventually it's gonna see you off the roster. So I'm not a fan of RJ Harvey for much of at all. I get why he can be kind of a fit for Sean Payton's offense, but again, we've talked about this quite a bit over the last earlier, and then on Monday, almost anybody can fit in the Sean Payton offense at running back. So it's, him being a fit isn't one of those things of like, oh, like only a few guys fit. There's almost everybody fits. So that's not enough for me to overcome my issues with his ball security.
Yeah, and it's not even as bad as the Virginia Tech running back, Tootin. He's the one who's like fumbles like crazy. And I also see Jeremy says that Estime fumbled on a second snap and didn't fumble again. He also fumbled in the New Orleans game out there as well. So
twice
it was on there, and that's 2 fumbles. At that point, that would be 2 fumbles on 9 carries. It did better after that, but again, just did not seem like they trusted him. We'll see what happens. Yeah, there's Tootin. We're talking about the fumbling issues. He's the one who fumbles it like every 20 touches or something, which is just ridiculous. Falling Sloth. Good morning, Broncos country. Hope everyone's off to a great day. Well, I hear the baby crying ahead of me or above me here, and sore throat. But you know what? Still air in the lungs. Coffee in the warm coffee in the cup. You can't complain too much. Appreciate you coming in here. Yeah, a little coffee with your creamer. I don't have that much, Tim. Goodness, come on. We're doing it here. Yeah, appreciate Ernie too. You're awesome, Ernie. Thank you for the kind words coming in here. Moving on, we do want to talk a little bit more about Broncos. Eric, I want to put the Joker stuff in a box. Yes, the Broncos are looking for a Joker, looking for a pass catcher at running back or tight end. No doubt. And we can talk about it later too, as Peyton mentioned, like trying to find the Loch Ness monster. There's not always a guy that fits that role, and it doesn't have to be exactly the draft. It can be free agency as well. It's a role, and there's varying degrees to what level you can be a Joker in an offense as well. I want to get back to something we talked about a little earlier. DJ Jones. Broncos have talked with DJ Jones, his agent at least. Denver's interested in bringing him back. This to me, Sean Payton kept mentioning they were a top 5 run defense last season. I don't know exactly what metric they were going off of for that, but they were definitely a fine run defense. I think a lot of that was because of how much early down blitzes they had, right? Filling body. It was more of a bodies than stopping the blitz with like white boxes or anything. But yeah, DJ Jones, I would love to have him back. I know you and I prior to last season were like, Denver cap trouble. He didn't really play great in 2023. We'll see. He was great this last season. Good one technique. And beyond DJ Jones, this to me also says that they understand they cannot get by this season with just Malcolm Roach and Owaze-Rike at the 0-1. They need to find another interior defensive tackle. I don't know if we want to classify it different than your John Franklin Myers and your Zach Allens and whatnot, but they need another DJ Jones-esque player, if not outright bringing back DJ Jones.
Yeah, real quick, I see Jason and Jeremy talking about RJ Harvey's size in the chat. He was at the Senior Bowl. You guys can pull up his Senior Bowl measurements, and you guys can get an accurate read on it. The same group that does the Senior Bowl measurements is the same exact crew who does the measurements at the Combine. There are sometimes, some differences, weight especially, because some players trim weight and some players bulk up for the Senior Bowl because of the 40. But that should give you a pretty good idea of where RJ Harvey is with his measurements by checking out Senior Bowls. As for DJ Jones, every year at the Senior Bowl, general managers, head coaches, they meet with the agent of every single free agent that they have.
Do you mean the
It's just something
combine?
they do.
Do you mean
Combine,
the
yeah.
combine?
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
They meet with every single agent of the free agents that they have. So of course they're going to meet with DJ Jones, but with the way they talked about it, it seems like there is more legit interest in bringing DJ Jones back instead of Javonte Williams. Whereas Javonte Williams, it was kind of like, yeah, we're at the combine, we're going to talk to his agent, we're going to see where things go, and that's about it. The legit interest in DJ Jones, it's like you said, I was really low on him. He was a guy who was like, okay, just cut him, save the money prior to the season, let him be a cap casualty at the 53-man cutdowns. But after the first 6 games were rough, and he had a couple rough games after that, but he really, became more consistent with his role, and they became more consistent with the way they were using him after those first 6 games, which was using him primarily as a 0-1 technique instead of still flashing him out as there's a couple times in those first 6 games where he was lining up as a 4 technique, a 5 technique, and it's like, what are you doing? He's not fit for that. So when they started to use him in the way that works more for him, we started to see more consistency from him. My concern is what is his market value going to be? How much is he going to get? He's not a guy that I think they should bring back for more than, $8 million on an average per year basis. And when you look at Spot Rack, which, with their market estimates, it's always a toss up because of the way they go about it can be very skewed. Because it's all, statistical comparisons and with like the big stats. And so that you see DJ Jones and he has this market value of, I think, 12.1 million or 11.2 million. It's like, that's well out of my price range for him. Like, he was good. He had a really good season, worth re-signing for the right price. And I mean, he just was vital for the run defense, which did pretty well last season. And if he can improve a little bit behind them and on the outside of them against the run, I think this run defense could be even better. What's hurting DJ Jones as well is the fact that there are a lot of guys who can fill that role in this draft. A lot of guys.
I mean, it's not even the draft; it's free agency.
Yeah.
You talk about there's Tart from Los Angeles is the kind of guy. You got Bobby Brown from the Rams. You got Poona Ford also from the Chargers. Could get it done. You got maybe BJ Hill, although I think he's going to get a good contract. Jerron Reed from Seattle, somebody who stands out. There's more and more here that I know Denver a few years ago, they were interested in Sebastian Joseph Day, Greg Gaines. You got, again, Derek Nottie, Adam Butler, who had a pretty good season for the Rams. There's going to be options out there as far as like a 2-year contract for interior defensive line that can at least give you some 0-1 technique, 2-eye, whatever, coverage for the interior defensive line on top of the draft class as well. So again, DJ Jones is probably the close to the cream of the crop of that group. Now he's going to be a 3rd contract player for that role. So maybe that drops him a bit, but he did have an incredible season. I think he was one of the top 5 players in run stuff win rate. Now, granted, they're not asking him to 2 gaps. The assignment's not exactly carry over for every single team, every single scheme. But regardless, Denver is looking to fill in that 0-1 technique with a body. Maybe it is DJ Jones. It's nice to bring him back. He's been a good player for Denver, and I think he's liked in the locker room as well. But let's say he end up getting a 3-year contract for $12 million per year. I mean, I think you could probably find somebody who can give you 85% of DJ Jones for 2 years, $8 million total, or 2 years, $10 million total. And that might be the route Denver goes. That gives you a little bit more flexibility, more money to bring back Zach Allen, Courtland Sutton, Nick Benito, who they talked about yesterday. And also still just give you a little coverage. Like, I don't know if he has to be a starter with Malcolm Roach. You need a 1A and a 1B, I think, with Roach. And Denver will get that done, I believe, in free agency where they're safe entering the season, but also not to the extent that, let's say, they're sitting there in the 3rd round and they absolutely adore a 0-1 technique type. They can draft that guy as well still. So I think that's the plan. I'd love to have DJ Jones back. I think somebody's going to pay him more than the market Denver is willing to dabble in for that spot.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning the draft specifically because, trying to save a little bit of cost there. I mean, they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be well off next year. They're more than well off this year. They're sitting with I think per over the cap, they're sitting at 41 million in salary cap space. And with 3 restructures, which they are seemingly likely to do per Jeff Legwold, that they can be over 60 million in salary cap space. And with rich owners, I always talk about this, you can easily work and manipulate the salary cap. So I think they're more than fine this year to where they don't have to be, cost cutting or cost aware with what they do. But yeah, I was just mentioning the salary cap specifically, or the draft specifically because of the cost with it. Because some of those guys, I mean, I can't remember if it was on here or on the last Dev Valley Deep Divers show that we did, where I really talked up Puna Ford. I mean, if you look wanting a guy who can, I mean, he can two gap, he can one gap as a run defender, and he's a really high quality run defender. And his market value is sitting at around, per spot rack, again, you can question that, is sitting at like $6 million. So I mean, he's a guy that I wouldn't mind looking at here for them as well. But yeah, I mean, free agency, a lot of defensive linemen and a lot of guys, and I do think that even though they are fine, they can't sit there and be willing to overpay to keep DJ Jones. And when you look at what George Paton has done, he's been kind of strict with in terms of keeping players, of paying them what they really seem to believe is their market value. Now they could believe that market value for DJ Jones is 12 million plus per year. I have a hard time believing that, especially after seeing what they did with what they were willing to go and spend on Malcolm Roach last year, which was about 8 million on an average per year basis, I think. So I could see them, as you said, 1A, 1B. I can't see them going and spending $20 million for their two inside defensive linemen, those nose tackle types, by retaining DJ Jones at 12 million. I just can't see that. The positional budgeting is a thing.
Yeah. And again, it's market saturation. There's going to be guys who can come in and play that 0 and 1 role. Now, are they going to be as good as DJ Jones? Probably not, but you're gearing up to pay the likes of Zach Allen, potentially Benito, and also Courtland Sutton, who's another one who's brought up multiple times. What are your thoughts on, have you heard anything? Hey, I know you have contacts in the team and, people in the league, with how bad this free agency / draft class is at wide receiver. I know that there's been some talk about trading Sutton. I know Shakir just got a contract, still less than, who was the guy that the Jags way overpaid? The wide receiver, the slot guy. Really fast slot guy the Jags paid like 4 off seasons ago.
Christian Kirk.
Yes, he still paid less than Kirk, which is crazy considering the inflation and everything. They way overpaid that kid, God. But God, I just, where the Broncos are at, I know he's older and everything, but I would just really love to give him a 4-year contract that essentially is a 3-year contract. Let's pay him like a top 15 guy right now, right? You got the ability to do that. I think he's probably closer to a top 20 guy, but guess what? There's always inflation in the stuff. I'd rather pay him before we see what Higgins gets paid, before Jamar Chase gets paid, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get him some guaranteed money up front, maybe some option bonuses later that you can kick in, and let's just solidify the room. Because right now, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one. Yeah, I remember your group chat saying goodbye Sutton after the Shakir contract, but I would rather just get him locked up, get him in here, get some stability there in the room. And just because you have the wealthy owners and like the void cap year stuff that you can do, I don't think it's really there's not a lot of negatives for me for retaining him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, when I said that, it was not because of looking at the overall value. Shakira is getting paid like just over like 15 million on an average per year basis on that 4-year for 60. And I think Sutton, he's looking at 20 million a year annually. I think what hurt him with the Shakir contract is the guaranteed money and the first year money. Shakir's getting 18 million in that first year, and I think $33 million is guaranteed, both of which are, I mean, what Shakir is getting in that first year is about what Sutton got on his first contract extension. Granted, he wasn't too far removed from that injury and all that. So I think that hurts him a little bit, because now you have his age being a factor. And you have this year that, hasn't really been super replicated throughout his career. I mean, it was only his second highest year in receiving yardage. And you saw how the issues with the offense, and you saw some, a little bit of force feeding to Courtland Sutton to get him there because of the lack of overall talent they had in the room. So I question the Broncos. I think they'll be fine if they can get him for 20 million on average per year basis, even though there's been reports of him looking for 22 plus. My issue is will they be willing to go and give him the guaranteed money he wants? Because that's been one of the issues with his contract dispute last year and is this year, which the Broncos are aware of. Mike Kliss wrote an article about that yesterday, saying that Courtland Sutton, his agent, have informed the Broncos that he will not play this year on his current contract. And the big issue is the guaranteed money. And so will the Broncos go out and give him that guaranteed money? Will they go out and on a, this 3 and possibly 4th year deal contract for, $80 million? Will they be willing to give him half of that guaranteed, 30 million of that guaranteed, kind of that range that he's looking for? That's where I question if the Broncos will. They do seem very adamant that they want to keep him, but it's going to be a long negotiating process, I think, and got to be some give and take from both sides, as there is with every contract.
Yeah, no doubt. I see Quentin Caldwell in here. We got to wrap it up. 2 more quick conversations here. I wanted to just touch on. I know that George Paton, I don't know if Sean Payton did, but talked about, Javonte Williams still potentially back, good pass protecting back, maybe still, recovering from that knee injury. But then you have Sean Payton and George Paton talking about the other side of their mouth, talking about how good they love the run game infrastructure and the offensive line, and that this is a really good running back class. So I think that was a little bit more of a appreciate Javonte Williams on the way out and not bad mouthing him and like really hoping the best for him, because it is unfortunate. But at the same time, probably not back in Denver. And if it is, it's a 1-year minimum kind of thing just to, raise the floor of the room, because right now they don't have a single back in there that they trust in pass protection. Obviously based on what they did last season. But again, I think I think you and I are probably a little bit, especially me, if you want to run power or duo, like Luke Wattenberg is pretty freaking bad there. But
yes,
you can do worse as far as your overall center, and probably you're drafting somebody to compete and develop with Forsyth in 2026 versus somebody who's going to come in day one, like a Gray Zabel, who is fun to talk about, but probably not likely for the Broncos, just where they're at and the other options. So that was one big takeaway I wanted to get to. And also I finally loved like Sean Payton at the end, kind of saying like what our point has been all along, the overarching thing. I think he was getting tired of, it's his own fault at the same time, but kind of tired of answering the specifics of running back and tight end and Joker stuff. He's like, well, you want to get one of those to help Bo Nix? Well, guess what else helps Bo Nix? A shutdown cornerback, a defensive tackle, a linebacker, a safety. Like good players help Bo Nix at the end of the day, because it's about building a good team around your quarterback. And that's just, I made that point, I think, before, even like he was on the press conference and I've mentioned something like that on Twitter. It's like, guess what? If you have a fantastic edge rusher, you're going to have better field position. You're going to get a turnover. You're going to get more 3 and outs. You're not going to have to put up 40 points. You're not going to be in obvious drop back situations. All that helps Bo Nix by having a better team around him. Now it's a little bit more indirect than having a superstar tight end or running back. But at the end of the day, the draft is about maximizing your assets and hitting on your picks. And while Denver needs running back and tight end, if they evaluate a defensive tackle or linebacker as being an all, or safety as being an all-pro, no doubt kind of guy there as far as a prospect possibly can be at 20, that helps Bo Nix as well, because it helps the team. So I really appreciate Payton, even though it's his own fault. I'm still blaming y'all. That's hyper-focusation, focus on running back and tight end. And I still think that's probably the most probable direction they go. It's about drafting good players. And if you have a good ecosystem and a team overall, nothing happens in a vacuum. Get the best players, get difference makers, set yourself up long-term, and not be so hyper-focused on, if it's not Genty, Loveland, or Warren, it's a failure.
Yeah, and with Javonte Williams, I mean, I talked about it with DJ Jones. When I listened to them, it was how they were saying things. It just seemed like that, as you said, it was more of a, we appreciate you, Javonte. Listen to all these good things. Other teams listen to all these good things about him. Go sign him to a contract and put us somewhat in play for a compensatory pick. They'd likely get it canceled out with a signing of their own, but it's just trying to set him up to sign elsewhere for a decent contract instead of, having to re-sign him. And then we talked about this a lot with Drew Lock, building the nest around the quarterback. It's not just weapons. It's not just offensive line. It is defense. And it was nice to see Sean Payton do that. But as you said, it's also his fault that the hyperfixation is on tight ends and running backs.
Yeah. I mean, he put it out there and the media has run with it. And, they're looking for a pass catcher at running back or tight end. We'll see what happens if that's 20th overall or if that's later on. They're going to try to find somebody to hopefully fill that role. We'll find out at the end of the day, but that's going to do it for us today. Appreciate everyone coming in here. Shout out to Coach Chris with the stars. Shout out to Michael Ronquillo as well. Always appreciate Michael coming in and all the stars. Thumbs up on the way in, the way out, all of that. And again, financial times are weird right now. I understand all that. We got Broncos Tube saying, howdy boys, howdy to you. But anybody coming in and dropping their hard-earned cash to support the show and this fledgling stage of Broncos for Breakfast with this new duo is greatly appreciated. So we just want to make sure to give you guys a little bit of extra shine on that as well. Make sure you're following Eric and I on Twitter. Eric's at Erick Trickel. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. Overall, fun podium session. Again, I had a lot of FOMO not being there. I'll never forget asking a kind of pointed question towards John Elway and him staring through me. I've never felt so small in my life, because childhood hero. And I'm like, what would you do differently about Paxton Lynch? I wouldn't do anything differently. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. Yes, sir, John Elway. Yeah, any final thoughts as we get on out of here?
Yeah, only thing is that I felt is, well, first I have a question. Can we stop referring it to as the Joker and start referring to it as Nessie after George Paton's comments? Just because, Nessie's a little bit more fun, I guess. And, when you talk about Denver and Joker, things can get, wires can get crushed. Can be talking about basketball, which Sean Payton, highlighted Jokic's ability and how, kind of, what's the right word here? Talked quite frankly about his, having a guy like that as a tight end, which, just led to a lot of Joker puns there. But then I do think it's a little bit noteworthy that even though they weren't asked a direct question about it, they were asked, about contract extensions, talking to agents, and not once did either of them mention Zach Allen. That to me is a little bit noteworthy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we got a report here a little bit ago for Broncos country. Obviously Loveland had the shoulder injury. It should be good to go through non-contract drills in July minicamp and the preseason stuff. He should be full clear. So he's not working out and running and stuff. And we also don't have Elijah Arroyo working out with a knee injury and just coming down the tracks. Tyler Warren is also not working out. He's just interviewing. Also, Warren has received a green room invite, and they're being much more selective with their green room invite this season. So I'm thinking Warren's probably not going to be there when Denver picks 20 overall, if we're reading the vibes there with the green room invite, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they're only going to, I think I saw 8 to 10 players that they're confident will be drafted in the first, I think said first 20 picks. I think was what the report said. 8 to 10 of the first 20 picks.
We'll see what happens. Appreciate everyone coming in. I know we didn't get to every single comment question here, but appreciate the heck out of you guys. Hope you're doing well. And did I think John appreciate that question? No, I didn't. But it was the 2018 draft, and I thought they would maybe take, Darnold or Allen or something, and Lynch had been a flub to that point. I just wanted to see if his process changed. Is there anything you do differently, knowing what you know now? Yeah, in hindsight, that's kind of a pointed question, and Denver sometimes is known for controlling the media narrative out there. And I was very surprised I was able to sneak into the side room session after asking John that question. I thought I'd be, kicked out, but here we are, still killing it. That's one thing also from being where we're at. We don't have to play, North Korea, yes, emperor media stuff to have access, right? We don't have to play kind. We can ask the tough questions versus everything is awesome. So it is what it is. But appreciate everyone. We're going to get out of here. Got to go take care of the kid. You guys have a great rest of your day. Eric, good to see you again. We'll do it. Remind me, Monday, mock draft right away. Unless there's something breaking news that happens that we have to cover, but like a Courtland Sutton extension or a trade, but blah, blah, blah. We need to do a mock draft, and we need to have time to flush it out and everything. So appreciate everyone. Hope you guys are doing good. We'll see you next Monday. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.